contract. Yo, I'm no chiropractor, but I'm about to crack your back. Everything you never knew you need is going down tonight. I hope you got your safe word ready. Now let's take a flight. Have your elevator higher than the sky. MD floating on cloud nine in ecstasy. You be falling in love, making love to me. Now, girl, what's my name?
This is Mystique.
This is Mr. Everlasting.
And this is a Safe Word.
Safe Word! We want to welcome you guys to the first edition of Kinky Questions. We have a very, very accomplished member of the lifestyle community joining us this evening. Just to give you a little bit of his background, Sir Phoenix Black is a cisgendered, poly, heterosexual, black dominant leather man and identifies as sadistic, daddy dominant with an evolving primal predator. Sir Phoenix is the head of the household of the House of the Rising Phoenix. The leather objectives of his house is to learn, serve, play, and teach. Sir Phoenix has years of service in the kink and leather communities, presenting at Beyond Leather, Sex Down South, Southeast Leather Fest, better known as SELF, the Atlanta Eagle, and others. The kinky sadistic nerd generally presents workshops that merge the kinky and the scientific. He is also a mentor with the Atlanta Mentors Project, a dungeon monitor at 1763, a fetish performer, and a BDSM educator and presenter. His progressive, libertarian perspective is what fuels his passion for people to live authentically, regardless of identification or label. So at this time, we just want to welcome Sir Phoenix Black to 10 Kinky Questions. How you doing this evening, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Whenever I hear my bio, I'm like, wow, I guess I really do a lot.
Yeah, I'm honored to be in your presence. Like, wow, you are.
Like,
when I read it, I was like, oh, wow, we have greatness up in here.
I'm like, damn, where do I find the time to do all of this?
It feels like that. I definitely know what you mean. Just on all levels. So I get what you're saying. We're not gonna take too long, man. Like I said, we appreciate your time, and I think we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump right into this. So, Mystique.
Okay, Sir Phoenix. The first question is, how did you come into the world of kink?
I came in the world of kink really through the poly lifestyle, what I call the vanilla poly lifestyle. I met someone who was in the poly world, and she identified as a submissive, and she said, I think you have some very dominant characteristics. Now, that hadn't been the first time that I heard something like that, but she said dominant in the BDSM sense, and I was like, okay. I have definitely had a kind of unique flair for sex or whatever sometimes. So okay. And she sent me an article, and she emailed me an article, and from that article I was hooked. I read everything you could find on the internet. I ordered books. I ordered online education material, all of that kind of stuff. There were times that I would stay in my bedroom all weekend and do nothing but read, and watch videos and stuff like that, and just jumped in it feet first. For me, it really was like I found the community that I was meant to be in, and jumped in it from there.
Wow. Do you feel like there's more information out there now today than there were back when you first, if you don't mind me asking, about how long have you been in the lifestyle?
I've been in the lifestyle about 9 years. I'm not that old ahead as far as being in the lifestyle. I consider myself, as far as lifestyle, like a teenager, like, 14, 15, just enough that you could be real dangerous. But
I respect
that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I've been in the lifestyle just about 9 years, and it just, when you find it, and you find a community that resonates with you, like you just can't let it go, and that's what it's been like for me. As you said, I teach. I do shows, and am always looking to learn and improve my skills and be a better dominant.
That's cool,
That's
man.
cool. I like that.
So our next question is a very, very simple one. We want to know, how did you get the name Sir Phoenix Black?
Oh. Now, I've never been asked that question. I got that name because I went through a painful kind of part of my life. I used to be in the funeral business. I know that's unusual, but I used to be in the funeral business, and I was engaged at one point, and I lost my business and my engagement all within 3 weeks of each other.
Oh
Wow.
wow. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and it was a painful time in my life, and around the time that I started to really recover mentally and emotionally from it, is when I found the kink world. And I did feel like I was reborn, kind of like a phoenix, and kind of rose from the ashes, the emotional ashes of my vanilla lifestyle.
That's dope.
Yeah, and you know what we mentioned on a previous podcast about how the kink lifestyle is very healing and how you can find comfort in it. I'm glad you brought that up because we've talked about that a whole lot, about how healing this community is.
Now, it's funny, I actually teach a class called The Therapeutic Benefits of Kink
Ooh.
that talks about how the lifestyle, or how kink can have some therapeutic benefits. It's not therapy. Again, I can't stress that enough. It's not therapy, but there are therapeutic benefits to kink that help temporarily resolve things like anxiety, insomnia, stuff like that. So yeah, it's a physical therapeutic, but I think it's definitely mentally therapeutic as well.
Okay. And the third question, since we are a Black BDSM Black Kink Center podcast, how do you feel about the representation of Black people in the kink world?
Well, we are definitely the minority. It is definitely something. It's definitely something that people kind of associate more with white people, and it's like that's some white folk shit, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But we have.
Man, so it's funny, and I'm sorry. It's funny because the entire reason that we chose to start this podcast was because we were having a conversation, and people was like, "Oh, that's white people shit," and we were like, "No, there's a whole community of Black people and people of color that are into this type of stuff."
Oh yeah, and we although we're the minority in this world, we have a pretty strong presence though too. There are all POC events. There are all POC groups and organizations. For example, the Men of Onyx is a black leather fraternity. Then there are the Onyx Pearls, which is a black leather sorority. There is LOC, which is a group of stands for Leather Houses of Color Coalition. We have a good representation. We have some events that are completely POC events, like a weekend reunion. They have a few different events, and there is nothing like the first time I went to weekend reunion. I can't even explain how it felt to go someplace and you have an entire they took over an entire hotel, and there was a courtyard. It was made the way the hotel was made. It was made like a square. So, and the courtyard was in the middle of the square, and to see 700 kinky Black people naked, spanking, playing, all that kind of stuff, with t-shirt contests, all that kind of stuff. And it was like nothing I had ever experienced. And I was like, I love kink and I love the lifestyle, but there is definitely something different about the way that we play. We play with a different rhythm and a different energy that you can't emulate. So it's when you get us together, it's something special.
I think that's with anything, man. You know, when I think that's what people enjoy so much about like homecomings, especially at like HBCUs.
Hmm.
What you just talked about kind of reminds me of that. It's just being around that much energy, that much camaraderie, and the way that the energy flows in atmospheres like that, it is nothing like it. So I absolutely agree with you.
That's actually kind of how they came up with the name Weekend Reunion, because it was like a family reunion.
Okay, dope. That's what's up, man. So
Yep.
can you tell us more about the House of the Rising Phoenix?
House of Rising Phoenix is a MDHLFS household, which stands for male dominant heterosexual leather with female submissives.
Okay.
I do identify as open. I prefer not to use poly in reference to power exchange dynamics. And that's kind of a long conversation, but I'll give you the brief thing about it. Is that, as I said, I came into the lifestyle through what I call the vanilla poly world. And the vanilla poly world has a strong emphasis on egalitarianism and equity and stuff like that, which I don't think quite transfers in power exchange relationships, because I don't because you're talking about a relationship that you're expecting to be egalitarian and insert it into a relationship that is based in a hierarchical type of relationship.
Right.
So that's why I prefer the term open over poly. But so poly is a poly household. The principles of my house are the acronym HEART, which stands for honor, accountability, responsibility, respect, and transparency. And the leather objectives of my house are learn, play, teach, and serve. So it's always a journey in learning. It's always a journey in serving the community, not just the kink community, but the vanilla community. I have a service project that I do that I did for the first time this year, but I'm going to do every year with Hosea Feed the Hungry.
Okay.
Um, that is some of the service teaching. As I said, I teach a lot. I teach a bunch of different classes, and play, which is you first got it. Kind of first
Right.
was the dessert that brought you into the lifestyle. So those are the principles of my household. I have one submissive under consideration. Under consideration is kind of like the dating phase for to parallel it to the vanilla world, and that's where I am now.
I'm glad you did mention your sub, because that was the next question. Do you have I know you said you have one under consideration. Do you have a main sub right now? Could you tell us a little bit about the vetting process of with that sub, and give a little advice for somebody who may be in the vetting process right now, or how to start that process?
Sure. The vetting process basically is like the interview process. The difference between vetting and consideration is that vetting is about trying to make sure the person is someone that is safe, someone that is not dangerous, someone that won't harm you. I have to use the word harm because we do like to hurt, but someone that it won't harm you. And so that's what the vetting stage is. That is someone safe. The consideration phase is the phase where you try to determine if you all are compatible in a dynamic. So you may personality types, temperament, kinks, et cetera, stuff like that. So that's what the consideration phase. And then after the consideration phase, usually we go to collaring, which is more like a more permanent type of relationship, in which you will usually use a collar. You may use a real collar or something like a day collar, which is something that will pass in the vanilla world. So people don't say, what is that on your neck? But but we'll use day collars, as part of the collaring ceremony, and then it's a take ownership thing, and that's part of also what makes the lifestyle so appealing to me, because before you can be before you can own or be a master over someone else, you have to have some mastery of yourself. So to me, it's definitely a journey. You'll hear that word used a lot in the lifestyle. It's definitely a journey in which you have to look at yourself and look about the level of responsibility and commitment that you have to your submissive before you even go get a submissive or accept a submissive.
Man, amen. I say all the right words to say, because that was perfect. We do have a lot of vanilla listeners who are interested in what we talk about on the podcast, and I think that starting this series not only gives them a visual to the voices, but it provides opportunities to hear from people like yourself that have, like I said, a wealth of knowledge to be able to offer. And just kind of switch things up a little bit, lighten it up a little bit. I wanted to ask you, do you have a favorite aspect of kink? That's something that just instantly is like tickles your fancy.
I saw that smile. I'm ready for this answer.
Oh, you ready? You want the entree now, huh?
Yeah. Let me get.
All right. Well, without a doubt, my favorite toy are single tails. Single tails are toys that fall in the whip category. So that is definitely my favorite toy. One of my second favorite type of play is fire play.
Ooh.
Yes. but fire play is definitely probably my second favorite favorite type of play. It is not as scary for the bottom as most people think. It is dangerous, obviously, it's fire, but and it does fall under the category of edge play. But fire play is definitely my second favorite type of play. And the way that I do fire play is I take fire and I rub it along the body.
Ooh.
But the thing about it is most bottoms who have experienced fire play liken it to a hot stone massage.
Okay.
That piqued my interest.
Yeah, so it's one of my favorites. I go everywhere, baby. I hit the nipples and ass and everything, baby. You're not gonna need to get waxed when you finish with me.
Oh man, that's what's up.
I love that.
That's what's up.
Okay, and now the next question: what do you think is the hardest thing about this lifestyle?
Oh, the mental part of it. The mental part of it, because some people are not. I have a mentor that says that this lifestyle is not for those that are. It's not for those that are not emotionally mature, and not for those that are not self-aware. Because the thing about it is, when you get into this lifestyle, you have to be honest. You have to have a level of honesty and transparency and accountability and responsibility that doesn't necessarily transfer as well in the vanilla world, because the amount of trust that it takes, because people have sex all the time. People swing, people have casual sex relationships or just casual relationships, but there's something deeper when someone lays on my table and allows me to put fire to them, right, or tie them up and suspend them from the ceiling, or something like that. That level of trust is a deeper level of trust, and it's a great level of power. And so with great power comes great responsibility. So therefore, you have to really be able to check your ego. You need to check your ego. You need to check, am I really good enough to do what I'm about to do? All of those things. So it's a lot of mental part of it. And if you're not self-aware and emotionally mature, you can really hurt someone and put someone in the hospital. So because your ego got in the way.
Right.
So that's probably the biggest thing that I would say is the hardest challenge in the lifestyle.
And thank you for saying that, because me and some of my friends, we were actually having a conversation about the fake doms, that because there are so many fake doms out there, so
Oh
many.
yeah,
And
there are.
we were just talking about that, how people have a tendency to want to have permission to abuse somebody versus having a power exchange or earning their submission. So I'm glad you brought that up. I love that you're bringing up a lot of things we've touched on to show that, me and Mr. Everlasting know a little something. So
Just a little bit.
Oh yeah, it's not a game. It's not a game, and especially those that first enter the lifestyle, you usually it's just about everyone enters originally for the play and for the kink.
Right.
We all want to start with the dessert, but it's a lot of responsibility when you call yourself a D type, and it's not just about sex. So you have to be able to be responsible and be mature enough to not try to not be superficial. A lot of the people that you call fake doms, I which I agree with, but they're very superficial. They think it's all about sex. They're there to take, and not have anything to give or take any level of responsibility or accountability. So that is really what a lot of those fake doms do. That they're more concerned about what they can get instead of the abilities and skills and responsibilities that they're willing to give.
I was talking to a young lady, and what you said reminds me of, she was like, I met this guy. He says he's a dom, but all he wants me to do is to call him daddy and has rough sex. Like, he doesn't teach me anything. And I'm like, well, you need to get away from him ASAP, just because, you'll know, if you meet somebody knowledgeable, but you also have to be patient enough and find the right environments to be in. And speaking of environments, I wanted to ask you, do you have any classes or events coming up or anything that you would like to promote?
Well, because of COVID, just about everything's being canceled.
Yeah.
I actually was going to one of the weekend reunion events. I'm supposed to go in August, but that was canceled. A lot of the other events are either being canceled or being made virtual. But I am teaching a class for a conference called Beyond Leather, that I'm teaching the art and the science behind primal play and primal play dynamics. Primal is the animalistic kind of play and sex part of the lifestyle. I am teaching another class at Southeast Leatherfest, which is my firstborn, my first baby, my first hit, which was which is the biochemistry and neurology behind kink.
Okay.
So those that I have on the agenda, but I have about 7 classes that are in my class portfolio. I teach a class on single tails. Of course, that's my favorite toy. So I teach a class on that. And not only do I teach a class on that, I talk about the historical origins of the whip and how, if you are doing whip play with African Americans, you need to be aware that has a special significance with Black folks.
Right. See, that's why, you know what, I can't, that's the one thing right now, I'm not mentally built for it right now. Maybe one, but my name not Kizzy, so I can't. But could you also, for our listeners and our watchers, can you provide, I know we have your Instagram and we have your Fat Life. If you have any other links or anything to your classes, you do private classes too?
Generally, I don't do private classes. I do shows, which you can find a lot of my work on my YouTube channel under Sir Phoenix Black.
And we're gonna add all this in when we share the video. We're gonna put all your links and everything.
Okay, good. But some of my other classes are, as I said, the therapeutic benefits of kink. I have a class called the needs and language barriers in power exchange dynamics. And really that class works for vanilla or kink, because there's still a great level of transparency and communication that needs to take place. And I have another class called Get Off My Lawn, embracing the next generation of kinksters and leather folks.
Okay. I like that name. It just makes me want to be like, get off my lawn. I thought it was talking about like shaving, but I don't know why. That's the first thing I thought about. And on that note, we usually end our videos and everything with what's your safe word. And when we say what's your safe word, we mean what's that final word you want to give to our listeners? And just to wrap up everything you just said, what's that final safe word you have for us? Interview.
Transparency.
Like that.
I love that.
That's because you're going to need that on both sides of the slash in this lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would love that. Because consent
It's
is sexy.
Well, Sir Phoenix Black, we greatly appreciate your time. We thank you for taking time out to speak with us this evening. And y'all make sure to follow all of his information down below. It's going to be in the comments. So y'all make sure y'all check that out. And
on that note, I'm Mystique.
I'm Mr. Everlasting.
And this has been the Safe Word.
Safe Word.
Baby, you got what I want, and I got what you need. Let me open up Pandora's box when you take heed.